so go around and give each other a hug. Don't be frightened. People don't bite, Irvin. You know, you can go around and... And then when you finish, if you can all come down in the front 2 rows.
Next week, play the cross on the hill. I like that one. How great thou art. You know what you think of it, Ken?
Yeah. You can stand in front and sing with me. Yeah.
You want to come down at the front 2 rows? I'm sorry to disturb you, David. You know.
All right. Do this.
Morgan.
And it's intimate, isn't it? We're all together. Have you got a favourite artist? Helen, have you got a favourite artist?
I like a few. I quite like Klimt and Monet.
Monet, yeah.
Waterloo.
You got a favourite artist, Ken?
Aye. They will cut his ear off.
Yeah.
Aye.
Is it Van Gogh or is it Van Gogh?
I think
That's
it's
yeah.
I've got to say Van Gogh.
Because he was he did the same job that Irwin did. He painted the Sistine Chapel, didn't he?
No,
Is that the same one? That was Michelangelo. Yeah. Okay. Right. What does an artist do when he's finished the painting? What's the very last thing that he does?
He signs it.
He signs it. Ken, I'm glad you're here. I'm really glad you're here.
Well, I'm glad
I'm here. Yeah. So, signs it on the bottom. Why does he sign it on the bottom?
Because you couldn't see it if it was on the back.
That's true.
Everybody else says
Because he's quite proud of what he's done, isn't he? I think he actually. Well, I believe that when God made things, he actually signed it on the bottom. And I've got a number of animals here, and we're going to go through them, and we're going to see how they're uniquely different in different ways, and how God's signature is on them. Because God signed it, because he was very happy with what he had seen, what he had done. The other week, we have a little group that meets on a Saturday night, and was it last week we were designing animals? It was really worrying because Mike's looked... I was terrified. I didn't sleep that night. You didn't realise what goes on in Mike's mind. But it was interesting. But yours was quite good, wasn't it? Yeah.
That was interesting.
It's Matthew, by the way. Yeah, he's Matthew works at Weatherricks and keeps me on my toes. So we're going to go through a few animals, different sorts, and see how unique they are and how God's signature is on them. We've got kids in schools these days, I've spoken about this before, are told about evolution. They're not taught it, they're just, you're going to have to go along with it because it's something that nobody ever questions it. The theory of evolution started even before Charles Darwin's day, about 30 years before he went off on the Beagle, and a long time before he wrote the book, The Origins of Species. There was a Frenchman, and a lot of the things that Darwin said were actually copied from this Frenchman. So it wasn't anything new even in Darwin's day, but Darwin is the big one that we think of because he was British. We don't count the French. Yeah. So, I think I've got an idea what we're going to... Can we have a millipede? Yeah. Afterwards, Matthew will get a few things out for you to go touch and feel more. But if you, see if I can get it to come out. Difference between centipedes and millipedes. The millipede, see if she comes out. Here we go. There we go. Millipedes are vegetarians and centipedes are carnivorous. So if you pick up a centipede, the chances are you'll be bitten by it because they've got little pincers and they bite you and that's quite horrible. The millipede is completely vegetarian. And how you tell the difference, it's not in the number of legs, it's the number of legs per segment. So if you look at the segments on the body, for every segment they have 2 pairs of legs, the millipede, whereas the centipede only has 1 pair of legs on every segment. And underneath it's got little pads, like little Velcro pads underneath, and it's sticking in my hand now, so it can actually walk up steep slopes and so on. They've got an exoskeleton, so the skeleton's on the outside of the body, so if they fall from a tree or whatever, then they don't get hurt because they've got their armour plating. And how you sex a millipede is really interesting, Helen. How would you sex a millipede?
I don't know. Show it something.
If you count 7 segments back, the male has only got 1 pair of legs on the 7th segment. The female has got 2. And that's where the male keeps his little dude. It's interesting, isn't it, that it does a Mexican wave. See it? Legs going like that. But they are absolutely brilliant creatures, but very unique. All of these type of animals, in different ways, move in different ways. And the legs, it seems to be like a wave going down the body. It's quite happy there now. You see, it's actually pooed on me.
Yeah.
Do you know what happens when one poos on me? Just like Matthew said. So it's an interesting little animal, is the millipede, and unique, absolutely unique. Now, evolutionists, they tell you that it evolved from something without legs. And the ones without legs evolved from something with legs. And it gets a bit confusing, doesn't it? Yeah. So, how does the centipede only have 1 pair of legs? How does the millipede have 2 pairs of legs in every segment? All interesting questions, much easier to believe that were actually made by a great mind that actually thought of that. Could you design one of those, Matthew? Do you think? Difficult? Very absolutely brilliant. Put my hand in there. I won't be smelling of the millipede when I get something out that might like eat millipede.
There's a bit of kitchen roll there. Look.
Is that? All right, yeah. A bit of that. Okay.
Mind that microphone.
This animal comes from Australia. And Australia are really good now because they stopped exporting all of their fauna and flora some time ago. So all of the bearded dragons that we've got in captivity have been bred in this country and bred in Europe and America for quite a long time. Now, he actually displays to his female, see this beard, so he brings it out. And when he displays to the female, brings the beard out, really makes it really big and strong. And the females will pick the ones with the biggest beards. Yeah. He's a bit lively.
Yes.
Yeah. He's building himself up because the spider going around, man. Yeah, Mike said. Do you want to have that happen? No. Anybody like bearded dragons?
Is that a male or female?
It's a male. Yeah. And you tell for these, if you look underneath, you see that little dimple there, feral dimples in there. You can tell that that's where he keeps his sex organ in between there. The females don't have those dimples. So the lizard is cold-blooded, so it's the temperature of its surroundings inside its body. The outside of its body, it's a bit cooler than its surroundings. So in here, it's not really that hot, so when you touch it, it feels quite cool to the touch. And these omnivores. So they will eat meat, so they like insects and they like little other lizards, but they'll also eat a bit of vegetable as well, particularly when they're babies.
It's beautiful.
What makes them unique to other things? Lizards, of course, being cold-blooded. You think of other animals that are cold-blooded? Snakes, yeah. Insects, generally, they drive blood, but they are cold-blooded. So their temperature is regulated from the temperature outside of them. It's interesting that we've got some varieties of snakes, we'll get a snake out in a minute, that they actually incubate their own eggs. So how do you incubate your eggs when you're cold-blooded? It's an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? Not all snakes, some of them dig holes and let them, hatch in the sun kind of thing. But when it comes to some of the bigger pythons, like the Burmese python, it actually coils itself around the eggs to defend the eggs, and it vibrates its body to bring the heat up. That's quite unique, isn't it, when you think again? Another unique aspect. Not all snakes do that, but this particular animal just lays a pile of eggs, digs a hole, pile of eggs in the hole, and then just leaves them. Doesn't have anything to do with the babies, except that it might try to eat them afterwards, because it doesn't recognise them, and the lizards are food. Yeah.
So there's some lizards' tails. What happens if this lizard loses its tail?
This one hasn't got a tail that comes off, but a lot of lizards, like if you grab hold of them by the tail will come off. So a lot of them will, they grab hold of the tail and the tail comes off, wriggles in your hand, and that just helps them to escape from predators.
Right.
We brought a snake that it's not too bad in cooler temperatures. This one comes from the Americas, and it's named Snowy. Snowy's a Mexican black king snake.
Oh, sorry.
There you go, going into it's very. Snakes have got really, really poor eyesight, and if I come here, Andrew, and I put it there,
No, I don't want
she can't see you very well. It's got very, very poor eyesight. And if I put it there, Jeff, it can't smell you very well. I'm not saying you smell, but it can't smell you very well either. What it has got, sorry Andrew, what it has got, it's got an amazing sense of taste. Right now, Andrew, I'll chase it with something else. So you see the tongue coming out? The tongue comes out, it tastes the atmosphere, and then the tongue goes back into its head, into a part of its head, a little organ there called the Jacobson's organ. The Jacobson's organ is actually like a moving laboratory. It takes that around wherever it goes. So it takes the tongue, tastes the atmosphere, puts it back into the Jacobson's organ, and it can tell from a sense of taste which animals are in the room that it might be able to eat, which animals it should avoid, and all from a sense of taste. Do you think we've got a Jacobson's organ like a snake? Can you do that with your tongue? Put it out. Do you think? Can we try it? Put your tongue out, taste the atmosphere, and then plonk it back into your Jacobson's organ, and tell me how many insects are in there.
97.
Mine is cheated. So maybe our Jacobson's organ doesn't work like that. Let's try another. Has anyone been to this place that they sell burgers and chips and things like that? It's called McDonald's. Have you heard of it?
No.
Is the one in Capri? Yeah. So you've been to McDonald's?
From
Has
Mexico.
anyone been to McDonald's twice? Yeah? That's amazing, because I've worked with some of the most biggest ferocious animals in the world, but you wouldn't go back to McDonald's twice. So you deserve a medal for that. So tell me, what do McDonald's chips taste like?
Cardboard.
Salty. Say it's salty. That's your Jacobson's organ. It reminds you of what taste is. So we have got a Jacobson's organ, but ours is very, very primitive compared to a snake's. And yet we think of the snake as being a very primitive animal. And yet the Jacobson's organ is more advanced than ours. And that's a lot of the cases in the animal kingdom. This evolutionary theory is a bit like driving one of your many cars, Mike, and putting it into the middle of the room there, and everybody getting a big pile of boulders and throwing the boulders at the car, and one of the boulders will obviously make the car better. And the evolutionary theory is just like that. One of them might make it better, but the rest of them will actually make it not very good at all. Snowy reminds me that when my kids were little, we had a Mexican black king snake called Snowy as well. It kind of runs in the family. And our Sally had her, it used to come out in the bedroom, and it used to hang around in the bedroom. It was great. And my mother, her grandmother, came to visit this time, and she saw this rubber snake on the top of the toy box, and went to pick up the rubber snake. Got terrified. Didn't come back for 4 weeks before she came back again. Great result, that. Yeah. But isn't that a beautiful animal? How, you can see why people think that snakes are slimy. And the reason why people think snakes are slimy is in this country we have a grass snake, and the grass snake does put a secretion on its body to escape from predators. And even though a lot of people have probably never looked at a grass snake, seen a grass snake, the folklore through the ages has been passed down, so everyone thinks that all snakes are slimy. It's not the case.
So why was it in the bag?
They travel much better in bags because they don't damage themselves. If it was in a plastic tank or a glass tank, it would rub its nose up against it. It might start striking at it. So this way, it's a much better way of carrying them. And bigger snakes, when we take them out, like big Burmese pythons and so on, we put them in duvets. So pillowcases are good for little ones, duvets are good for big ones. Tortoise, eh? My teacher was a tortoise all I know. There are lots and lots of different sorts of tortoises in the world. And this particular one is, we have, how many you got this stuff?
I think of what different species?
Yeah.
I think we've got
5 different species. So how many animals we've got altogether? Probably 20-ish. Yeah. So we've got about 20 of these, and they're all rescued. We've got giant sulcatas, well, the baby sulcatas. One of them's about so big, it'll grow much bigger. And this one here is a Herman's tortoise.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah. So
My uncle used to breed them. He had hundreds of them.
Yeah. I thought I'd bring a Herman just for you,
Yeah.
because I thought you'd appreciate how Hermans
They live ages, up to 18 years
How old
old.
do you think that one is?
How old is that one, Terry?
How old do you think it is?
Well, I would say 50 or 60 years.
It's not actually, it's not, it's probably about 20, 25 years.
25 years.
You know how you tell that,
But they won't grow anymore, will they?
this one will grow a bit more. Reptiles never stop growing,
Yeah.
just the rate of growth slows down. So this is a male, and you can tell the difference between a male and a female. If you plot them over, the male's got a concave shell, and the female's got a convex shell. That means she's got more room to keep the eggs inside, and he can actually snugly fit on top of her. And when they're mating, the male comes behind the female and bangs the shell. And they make the most beautiful noise when they make them. It's like, great. We should record that. This is the vulnerable species, and to prove it was hatched in captivity, they have to have an Article 10 certificate. So a little bit of illicit trade goes on at the moment. In that Estonia, they bring wild tortoises in from all sorts of regions, different parts where they come from, Africa particularly, and the Estonian government gives these people Article 10 certificates so they can prove that the animal was hatched in captivity. All they're doing is decimating the wild of tortoises, and then they send them to Europe, rest of Europe, and they send them to America, and they've got the right paperwork, and yet these animals were wild caught. Years and years ago, tortoises used to come into the country in Alibaba baskets, and they would be piled on top of each other in Alibaba baskets, and the bottom 2 layers were always dead. You could guarantee it. And the chances of survival into the first year with these baby tortoises was probably less than 10% they didn't do to the next spring, because they just didn't have the weight. People were taught to hibernate them. They weren't heavy enough to go through hibernation. They died in hibernation. So this fella, he was actually born in captivity. We have got an Article 10 certificate. But people, when they buy them, they buy a tortoise table. And they're not really suitable for a tortoise because they like to wander, and they'll wander great distances. They also like to climb. So you give them plenty of enrichment, and people realise that they can't keep them properly, and we end up getting them into the rescue centres. We've had a few in the last few weeks, haven't we? Yeah. So it's, but it's a nice animal. Again, exoskeleton, so the skeleton's on the outside of its body. Inside, it's just a lot of jelly. There was a great trade in tortoiseshell at one time. The people used them for all sorts of things. We don't hibernate our tortoises at all. We keep them awake through the winter time. We have a UV heat lamp, and they eat all winter. So they put great weight on. This has actually put on a fair bit of weight since it came in. With a tortoise, if you keep them in too small a space, they stop growing.
And to
Fight
fight
in a
the
small space, yeah.
The males fight over the
Oh, they do, very much so. So when you've got...
lay eggs under the ground.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they dig a hole in...
Yeah, dig a hole and lay the eggs.
So when this tortoise came in, it probably had been kept in too small an enclosure. So now it's putting on a bit of weight and it's growing a bit because it's in a big enclosure. Difference between reptiles and mammals: if you put a reptile or a fish into a tank that's too small, it just stops growing. Whereas a mammal, I could put a baby mammal into a matchbox and it would just grow out the box, it would just push it out. So mammals haven't got that regulation of stunting their growth. Most tortoises are vegetarian. There are some tortoise species that like leaf, and other tortoise species that like fruit. That one is particularly a leaf eater, so a lot of leaves, and they do eat a lot. Yeah. The difference between it's easy in England because we think of freshwater tortoises as terrapins. We think of saltwater ones as being turtles, and we think of the land ones as being tortoises. In America, they just call them all turtles, which is the turtle disaster. Because you can't tell, can you, which is which? And now we've got American species coming into this country, and they're called turtles, but they're terrapins. and a lot of species that are named. We had a great influx of terrapins that we were picking up from rivers and lakes, because people bought them, you know, the Ninja Turtle craze came about. People would buy them and they realised that they're quite dirty animals and they stink in the house and stuff like that. And one time, I think one summer, we actually picked up over 50 animals. We had a snapping turtle that was released onto the river Emont in the Lake District, and a kid almost had their finger bitten off by it.
Protect ducklings, don't they?
Yeah, they love them, yeah. We had a call out T-based services, and they said that their mallard ducks had some sort of a malfunction because most of them had only got one leg. So when we went out there were two red-eared terrapins about that big, and they were just biting the legs off the ducks. Yeah. So, yeah, horrible. When you take animals out of where they should normally be, and you put them into a habitat where they shouldn't be, they cause mayhem. We've got that a lot in this country. We've got a lot of invasive species. But it's not the animal's fault that it's invasive species, it's the people that brought it here, grey squirrels. Now in this country we're told that a grey squirrel could live, we've got to euthanize it straight away. We don't do it, it's not the grey squirrel's fault, it's the grey squirrel. So we send them to one of the rescue centres that's got a licence to keep grey squirrels. So they go into an aviary, into a big enclosure, and live their life there. Yeah, good then. Schools like these, because kids are often insect there. That was a joke, that. Oh, here we go. Oh, there's a frog. This is a Colorado river toad. Really? Yes. Again, quite a unique animal, frogs and toads. In this country, you know, we have common frogs, don't we? We have common toads, we have natterjack toads. So, what's the average age, do you think, of a common frog in this country? How long do you think a common frog would live for in this country?
4 or 5 years.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years, it would do well if it did that. And what's the average age of a toad living in this country?
8 to 10.
Sometimes well over 20 years. And the reason for that is the toad has got a particular substance in its body that makes it repugnant when animals try to eat them.
Yeah.
So why don't frogs have that? You know, if they're evolved in the same way, you'd think that they would have the same ability, but they don't. Bottom end of the food chain usually, but these are in the middle of the food chain. And when you get a frog or a toad, and they take something into their mouth, they haven't got the same system that you've got for swallowing. So what they do, see the eyes? Get an insect or a worm or something similar, and they push the eye down into the head, and that pushes it down into its stomach, and that's how it swallows its prey. And if it gets something rather big, it does it with both eyes. And down it goes. And that's how frogs and toads eat. This is an American animal, captive bred in this country, believe it or not, because a lot of people are enthusiasts for frogs. And it's not true, Anne. You don't have to kiss a lot of them to make a difference.
Just kiss me and I turn into a frog.
Ken paid me to say that, by the way. Another fundamental with the toad usually crawls around, and the frog. No, not toad. They're great because they can actually take water in through their skin. And they can actually breathe a little bit through their skin. So very often they'll actually hibernate at the bottom of rivers. Their metabolism slows right down, and it can take enough moisture and air through the skin. Oh yes. These are, yeah, these are cockroaches.
Yeah.
Cockroach, oh yeah, they're nice, aren't they?
Yeah. You couldn't eat too many though, because they're a bit crunchy, aren't they?
They're not doing anybody any harm.
See his little face, and that's sweet. That is one little sweet insect.
Yeah.
Again, the exoskeleton, the outside of the body. And you get lots of animals in different environments that have exoskeletons to save them from sometimes predators, sometimes falling out of trees, sometimes just being able to dig through things. The cockroach has got a really, really horrible persona, hasn't it? Yeah. Everyone thinks. I remember I taught science in an old approved school down in Leicester, and we used to do 2 night duties on a week. And if you went into the kitchen and the lights were out to go and get a drink, you'd hear crunch, crunch, as you walked over the top of many cockroaches. Thankfully that doesn't happen these days. They wouldn't be allowed to, would they? But those were the days, weren't they? This one is the Madagascan hissing cockroach, but this one's become so tame, it's not even hissing. It's an unhissing cockroach.
Yeah.
Have you got a hissing one?
No.
This one's lost one of its antennae. When it molts,
It can only get BBC.
it can, yeah. It's strange. It can only get terrestrial television.
Yeah.
But when it molts, it'll grow a new one.
That's good.
And if it loses a leg, it'll grow another leg. It's great, man. Makes you think that in the future will all of us be able to do that. You lose a leg, get a new one. Do that in, get a new back. Sounds good to me. Lovely little creatures though, and they're much maligned. But they're nature's cleaners. They've got a job to do. They come along and they clean up after everything, anything. There's some cockroaches that just like eating dung. And there are the cockroaches that like eating fruit, and it goes rotten. And it takes the flesh off the fruit, leaves the seed, and the seed then can grow.
So you get flying cockroaches then as well?
Yeah, that particular one, there's a kind of, not that one, there is a Madagascan cockroach that when they get their nuptial wings, the males can fly, just the males. So they fly off somewhere else to find a female they don't know, that's unrelated. So that's nature's way of making sure that the population is, you made it right, nice yeah. Have you got any questions about, evolution, creation? You want to think of an animal, then Michael answers.
Have you got any fish, Terry?
Fun?
I'm after some fish. You know the fish when you got a lot of dead skin underneath your feet?
Yeah.
You
It's
feed
not
them.
good for the fish.
Where can you get them?
Yeah, it's not good for the
The river
fish.
swale.
Pardon?
No, not good for the fish.
Aren't they?
No, not with your feet.
Because they used to get them, didn't they?
Yeah.
People used to
They
go to
become-
places.
I mean, in Asia they do it a lot.
You get your feet,
Yeah.
instead of going to the shop with this,
Yeah.
and the load of rubbish anyway, go to one of them.
Don't tell him that. Don't tell Jeff that.
Who's Jeff?
If you go wild swimming,
They're a load of they don't do a good job.
Well, the chiropodist or the fish.
with a swale, if you go wild swimming, if
I'm
you
going to
do
go to the
swale,
white one.
they nibble your toes in there.
That's not so bad because
It's
what
not
happens
very
in a confined space, the pH of the water changes and the fish die.
Your mouth changes.
I know what you mean. I'm
Yeah.
going to try Jeff anyway.
You want to talk about fish?
But you only do it in Harrogate, don't you do it here? Sorry.
If you want to know about fish, ask Matthew. He loves fish.
Oh, do you do it? So I need to know next time I come, yeah. I'm going to pick up. Put it down.
Has anybody got any more questions before I get our immaculate duo back up again? Sorry, man. Andrew, I'm really sorry.
All the times.
Yeah.
Those cockroaches.
It was Helen told me to do it. is.
Those cockroaches, do they bite?
That one doesn't. No,
What about the others?
no. There are some that do. The cricket that you hear.
Yeah.
Noises of the cricket's a kind of cockroach.
Yeah.
Nature's cleaners. Right. Okay. Music maestro, please.